Okay, I believe we're in a good spot, so if I could have members, please. Thank you. It's Executive Day in morning Ways and Means version. So with that, committee secretaries, are we ready? They are ready. I will call this meeting of Assembly Ways and Means, I almost said joint meeting, Assembly Ways and Means to order. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Here.
Assemblyman Frierson. Assemblywoman Gorlow. Here. Assemblyman Hafen. Here. Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Here.
Assemblyman Levitt. Here. Assemblywoman Miller. Here. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Here. Assemblywoman Peters. Here. Assemblyman Roberts. Here. Assemblywoman Titus. Here. Assemblywoman Tolles. Here. Assemblyman Watts. Here. Chair Carlton.
And I am here. Good morning, everyone. So today we have a long agenda in front of us. So just so that everyone gets the lay of the land and understands why there's so many bills listed, today will be an in and out day in Ways and Means. We'll be here, we'll be on the floor, we'll probably be back to the floor. So in order to make sure that we can use all the time possible, we list as many bills as possible. For all the agencies out there, thank you for being on Zoom. I don't want you to stop doing what you're actually getting paid for every single day. So stay there, pay attention. We're going to, after we do the first two, we're going to do the rest in order. So if you tune back in and your number's still 5 or 6 numbers out, stay there. Don't worry about being in the building. We can get this done this way. So the first two bills that we're going to hear this morning, the first one is SB 444, a supplemental appropriation to the state distributive school account. We need to put some money in there. So we're going to get that done first. And then we're going to do SB 430, the Nevada State Infrastructure Bank, and we'll get that done. And then we'll go back to the top of the batting order and work our way through these bills today as efficiently as we possibly can to keep things moving. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Kaufman to get us started.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 444 makes a supplemental general fund appropriation of $268,433,822 for an unanticipated decrease in revenues for the 2019-2021 and 2020-2021 school years. This act becomes effective upon passage and approval.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaufman. So with that, committee members, this is the supplemental that we see every biennium, and this is how we fund education. Ms. Hartz, welcome to the committee. Nice to see you again. If you would like to go ahead and give us a brief overview on this, and we will proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Heidi Hartz, and I serve as the Deputy Superintendent for Business and Support Services at the Department of Education. As has been previously mentioned, this is a request for a supplemental appropriation, which will allow the Department of Education to have sufficient funds available to continue making our monthly payments to school districts and charter schools for the remainder of this fiscal year. The revenues that were included in the legislatively approved budget were not earned as anticipated, in large part due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so that has resulted in a revenue shortfall within this budget account, and we require these additional funds to honor the financial commitment to our school districts and charter schools.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hartz. Committee members, are there any questions of Ms. Hartz at this time? Not seeing any, not seeing that there would be any other presenters. This is the hearing for SB 444, so I will open up the hearing. With that, is there anyone in the room in support of SB 444? Broadcast Services, is there anyone on audio in support of SB 444?
If you would like to testify in support of SB 444, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in support on Bill SB 44.
Thank you very much.
444, pardon me.
Okay, so with that, is there anyone in the room in opposition of SB 444? Not seeing anyone come forward. Broadcast Services, anyone in opposition?
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 444, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in opposition to SB 444.
Anyone in neutral in the room? Seeing no one, anyone in neutral on the phone line, please.
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 444, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in neutral on SB 444.
Thank you very much, Broadcast Services. Committee members, are there any other questions or comments on SB 444 before I accept a motion to move the bill? Seeing none, Ms. Kaufman, I believe this would be a due pass. Yep. So with that, we'll go ahead and go into work session with the intention of processing SB 444. I believe this would be a due pass.
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So with that, I would accept a motion to do pass from Ms. Benitez Thompson, a second from Dr. Titus. Questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. We'll send this down to the floor to get it done immediately. Thank you all very much. So with that, our next item for today is SB 430, revises provisions governing the Nevada State Infrastructure Bank. So with that, Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 430 makes various changes concerning the governance of the scope of Nevada Infrastructure Bank. Among other things, the bill expands the board of directors of the bank to include the director of the Office of Energy, expands the list of projects that may be funded through loans or other financial assistance from banks to include projects relating to water, wastewater, renewable energy, recycling and sustainability, digital, social, and economic development projects. This authorizes the bank to provide loans and financial assistance in Indian reservations, Indian colonies, and provide nonprofit entities created for charitable or educational purposes, and makes the establishment of the bank effective July 1, 2021. With respect to the fiscal impact, the Department of Transportation did submit a fiscal note indicating the legislation had no fiscal impact to the agency. However, the legislation relates to previous budget closing actions taken by the money committees, including the approval of $75 million in state general obligation bonds to launch the Nevada Infrastructure Bank to provide loans and other financial assistance to previous units of state and local government for the development, construction, improvement, operation, and ownership of certain transportation facility, utility infrastructure. Additionally, the money committees approved the establishment of a new Department of Transportation statewide infrastructure bank budget to support personnel and operations of the cost of the bank.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaufman. I would invite the presenters on the bill to come to the presentation table. Welcome. Good morning, Governor. It's nice to see you in person.
Good morning. It's a pleasure. I thought the treasurer was jumping up here ahead of me. So I don't know what it's nice to see you all this morning. Thank you very much. Chair Carlton and members of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means, for the record, I am Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak, and I am incredibly proud to be here today to present Senate Bill 430. Broadly speaking, Senate Bill 430 is being proposed to launch and expand Nevada State Infrastructure Bank so we can fast-track much-needed infrastructure projects across the state and create thousands of good-paying jobs. As I highlighted in my State of the State address earlier this year, investing in infrastructure helps to create real jobs for real Nevadans. This proposed legislation, along with a $75 million appropriation in my recommended budget, will help Nevada create a robust pipeline of critical infrastructure projects, allowing us to put hundreds of millions of dollars back into our economy and help get people back to work. Capital projects not only create high-paying construction and development jobs today, but those infrastructure improvements serve as the building blocks for our state's economic expansion for decades to come. The concept of a state infrastructure bank was approved by the legislature in 2017, but the bank has not been funded or initiated. It has yet to move any projects or create a single job. This bill will be the first step towards changing that by ensuring that our infrastructure bank has the necessary tools that can help the state, local governments, and tribal nations get projects off the ground immediately. Launching the state's infrastructure bank will play a major role in helping to immediately create pathways for good-paying jobs in Nevada, while helping to build projects for communities who desperately need them. We know that our state needs better roads, better schools, more affordable housing, and more sustainable forms of energy. Senate Bill 430 will help in making all of these projects a reality while improving quality of life for all Nevadans. At the same time, these changes will allow the state to best maximize federal dollars dedicated to infrastructure projects within President Biden's American Rescue Plan and the proposed American Jobs Plan. This bill will enable us to fast-track billions of dollars of infrastructure projects that haven't been started. The faster we move these projects from the list of things we need to do to the list of things we are doing, the more Nevadans we will put back to work. This bill has been made possible thanks to the continued support provided by trusted state and community leaders that know that this is an effective and productive way to move our state forward. These leaders include, to my left, Treasurer Zach Conine, Rob Benner, Secretary-Treasurer of the Building and Construction Trades Council of Northern Nevada, along with many other leaders from Nevada's labor community, Mary Beth Seawald, President and CEO of the Vegas Chamber, Elizabeth Fielder, President of NAIOP Northern Nevada, and David Strickland, President of NAIOP Southern Nevada. Overall, the proposed legislation changes coupled with the funding for the State Infrastructure Bank could allow Nevada to launch up to $200 million in new infrastructure investments by the end of 2021, this year, and $1 billion in new infrastructure investments over the next 5 years. This proposal is anticipated to create 16,000 construction jobs by the end of 2021. And by 2031, the passage of bill could create up to 30,000 good-paying jobs for Nevadans. I would like to conclude by highlighting that we are all aware the state of Nevada has undergone trying times through this pandemic. SB 430 is the first step towards delivering a promise to the people of Nevada to build back a better Nevada. I look forward to working with the legislature on this investment in our state's economic recovery and future prosperity. And I thank the committee for its consideration of this proposal. I will now turn it over to Treasurer Conine and the other representatives here today to present my state infrastructure bank bill, SB 430, to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor, very much. Treasurer?
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, Chair Carlton, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Zach Conine, and I have the pleasure of being your Nevada State Treasurer. Before I begin, I want to take a moment and thank the Governor and his team for their focus on keeping Nevadans safe over the past year and his focus going forward on putting everyone back to work. I'd also like to take, if I could, just a moment to thank Ms. Kaufman and Mr. Leiser for their help in putting together what I think has been an interesting process and something we haven't done before. I really appreciate the flexibility. This is a jobs bill. This is one of the largest jobs bills in Nevada history. Each word and definition contained within the bill is a step forward towards high-paying, family-supporting, middle-class jobs, creating generational growth right here in Nevada. But first, let's go back to the beginning. In 2017, the legislature came together and worked across the aisle to pass Assembly Bill 399 unanimously. This bipartisan bill established the framework for the State Infrastructure Bank to leverage capital from outside of Nevada in order to kickstart priority transportation and utility infrastructure projects. The bill was passed in a time when it looked like the federal government was going to move a large infrastructure package forward, and the state mechanism to centralize and vet priority projects to meet our infrastructure needs was absolutely necessary. Unfortunately, as we all know, that infrastructure week never happened, that money never came in, and the infrastructure bank sat on a shelf, unutilized. However, Nevada's infrastructure needs have not gone away. They've gotten worse. We need more than we did in 2017. Leading up to the pandemic, our office spent a lot of time looking at ways we could potentially fund the infrastructure bank using outside sources of capital. We researched best practices from other states and other countries. We talked to leading experts in the field to learn more about what Nevada could be doing to create meaningful investment in infrastructure. Once the economic effects of the pandemic began to take hold, launching the State Infrastructure Bank became not just a good idea, but rather an economic necessity to ensure that we could invest money directly into communities while creating good-paying jobs in the building and construction trades. Leading up to the Governor's State of the State address in January of 2021, our office began working collaboratively with numerous other agencies to figure out how we could best improve upon the existing framework of the State Infrastructure Bank to get projects off the ground quickly and effectively. Through these conversations, we determined that the bank's focus purely on transportation and utility infrastructure was somewhat limiting when it came to attracting capital into the bank. As such, we started looking at ways that we could expand the bank's focus to prioritize additional types of infrastructure projects so we could put more people to work and put much-needed investment in communities that have been traditionally left behind. Broadly speaking, Senate Bill 430 is seeking to ensure that we have the tools we need to start tackling the state's infrastructure needs immediately. And Chair, if you'd like, I could walk through the bill.
Let's go ahead and stop for questions for just a second, and then we'll do a walkthrough. If there's any general high-level questions at this time, I'd be happy to go ahead and open it up to the committee at this moment. Ms. Miller, did you have a question? Go ahead, Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Treasurer, for presenting this bill. My question is from Section 16.
Okay, Ms. Miller, he hasn't gone through the bill yet. This
Oh,
was,
so you meant higher level.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that's just, since this is such a new issue for us, if there's any overarching questions, and then we'll go through the bill section by section. Mr. Haven.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will keep this at a very high level. Mr. Treasurer, it's good to see you today. My question is generally speaking, these funds in this bank will be able to be loaned to local, and in my case, smaller municipalities and smaller counties, so they can go out and get matching grant funds. Is that correct?
Treasurer Conan, for the record, and thanks for the question. So broadly speaking, the bank will loan funds to a municipality, to a city, to a county, et cetera, so that they can help develop infrastructure projects. But in a larger scope, the bank's use of capital is to leverage other capital. So the $75 million of CIP, the intention is not simply to just loan that out directly. The intention is to attract outside capital so that if, for instance, a project is trying to be built and there's equity involved, there's federal dollars involved, all of these different sources of funding, but perhaps some of the project needs to be financed, that the State Infrastructure Bank could finance that project at a cheaper cost than simply going out to the public, going and trying to get a placement from a bank, for instance.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Any other general questions at this time? Ms. Majority Leader.
Thank you so much. Good to see you, Treasurer. And so talk a little bit about this, just so that I'm making sure that I'm understanding the structure right. Is this meant to be a revolving account, something that will kind of beget itself, or is this meant to be something that every biennium legislators would need to kind of replenish or authorize? And if it is kind of supposed to beget itself, could you talk a little bit about that? It sounds like I'm trying to distinguish in my mind if we're looking at like a loan structure with repayments back, or whether it's gifting.
Treasurer Conan, for the record, and thank you for the question, because I think it's deeply important to understand this. The State Infrastructure Bank is at its core a bank. It loans money out, it receives proceeds back for that money, and then it loans out money to another entity. The intention of the bank is not to have a general fund appropriation every biennium. In fact, the reason why we're calling it seed funds from that $75 million is specifically because they will seed the future growth of the bank. And I think that's important when we start thinking about what the bank could get done. It's not a grant program. It's not a CIP program where we're picking projects and just funding the projects and then the money goes away. It's a program where the State Infrastructure Bank is able to invest and loan money to entities who can then pay it back.
Great, thank you so much. I know we're going to walk through the bill a little bit, so we'll start talking about what a qualified borrow is and kind of the process for that. But I think that's important to get on the record. This is something that we're launching, and then we expect lakes to grow and do well. I guess, Madam Chair, at this point, would we kind of could I ask questions about what the first couple of years of the program might look like that aren't related to specific sections of the bills, or do you want to get through it and then
No,
we'll do
that
that?
would be fine. Let's make sure everybody has a really good understanding of this so that when we do go through sections of the bill, some of those items
Yeah.
might seem clear. So please
Okay.
proceed.
So for expectations about like what things might look like in year 1 versus year 3 versus year 5, anytime you're setting up a loan program and you are capitizing it, right? You only have so much that can go out in year 1, and then money comes back in, and then more money can go out, right? And so would you expect that in year 1, we're looking at, depending on what would be the realistic expectation for what we see in terms of approved projects in year 1 versus like year 3 or year 5?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, thank you for the question. I think broadly, projects would be determined by the board, and the sort of mechanic of how projects get approved will be a process of the bylaws.
I just realized you're a numbers guy, so I should ask a better question, and I apologize. So we are authorizing, how much for it? 75 million, okay. So how much of that could be used for loaning out in year 1 versus year 3, year 5? Because the projects are all going to be different amounts. So I realized I was asking an unfair question. So I guess I would say, how much of that do we need to hold to keep the bank kind of afloat versus how much will be able to go out the door? We are not going to do all 75 in 1 year, right?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, that's absolutely right. Although because of how we're paying for the actual executive director and other staff and sort of operating costs of the bank out of the bond interest and redemption fund through that separate bill, that $75 million will be able to go completely towards projects. I think functionally, you're absolutely right. You don't stand up a bank and immediately loan out $75 million. I would expect we'd probably loan out approximately a third of it immediately, and then more to go, but it'll be very project dependent, right? If we get a series of projects that create whatever the rubric that the board sets up, but I expect one focused on jobs and economic development. If we find projects very quickly that create the right amount of jobs that are shovel-worthy, that the bank is the delta between them getting access to federal funds and not, right? If the projects are there, we would move more quickly. If the projects aren't there, we would move more slowly. The central focus of any bank has to be preservation of capital. Right? I don't want to come back to this body and say, hey, we tried, but we spent all the money, we didn't get any of it back. Can I have more? We're not going to do that, right? So we need to make sure that capital is preserved first, and that to some extent will speak to how quickly the funds go out the door. Now, we know that there's more than $1 billion worth of capital projects brought to us by municipalities so far. As word of the bank spreads, I know this will surprise you as the Money Committee, we keep getting requests, right, for additional projects and funds, and so they continue to go on the list, and we'll continue to vet them.
Get a follow-up real quick, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. And so there have been other programs that have tried something like this. I might speak incorrectly, and staff can correct me, or someone can, I don't know, correct me, but I want to say that the federal new market tax credits versus the state new markets tax credits, there was something, I want to say around 2011, 13, where we stood it up and we saw some things work really well, and then we saw some things work not really well, and we had to forgive a bunch of loans that couldn't be paid back. I think we tried something similar to that in the solar area as well. So we've had some experiences that we can learn from in this. I hear you saying that this is going to be we're still talking about to local governments and municipal governments. So we would think of those as a much more steady investment. So when we think about how they're going to pay back the loans, we're feeling really good about those, right? Where I guess that would minimize a lot of risk versus if this were out in the public.
Treasurer Conine, for the record, yeah, one of the ways you can mitigate risk is by making sure that the borrower is a known entity that is controlled in the same way that we are all controlled, right? That they have open meetings, that the information they're providing has been vetted as part of that standard public record. I think two other programs that we could look at is our clean water and drinking water revolving funds, right, which are small, but they've worked for years using federal support through WIFIA, but also state dollars, right, occasionally, to continue doing projects like that. And they put a project out, they get paid back with sewer fees. They do another project, they get paid back with sewer fees, right? As exciting as this is for me to talk about from a jobs perspective, we expect we'll make very boring loans that get paid back.
Thank you. I feel better about that. I like the devils that we know, right?
So with that, committee members, I think we'll go ahead and have the treasurer just walk us through the bill, and then we'll go back to questions section by section in the bill. Treasurer, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Sections 2 through 7 of the bill are definitional sections, which help to further define the various types of infrastructure projects that are referenced throughout the bill. Section 10 expands the types of infrastructure projects which can be financed by the Infrastructure Bank to include transportation facilities, utility infrastructure, water and wastewater infrastructure, recycling and sustainability infrastructure, digital infrastructure, social infrastructure, and other infrastructure related to economic development. Section 12 of the bill expands the definition of a qualified borrower to include local governments, tribal governments, or private entities which are created solely for charitable or educational purposes. Section 15 expands the board of directors to include the director of the Governor's Office of Energy. Additionally, Section 15 clarifies that the Infrastructure Bank is to be housed within the Nevada Department of Transportation, but will operate under the direction of the board of directors. Section 16 of the bill provides the board with the flexibility to establish various accounts and sub-accounts for the operation of the bank, but ensures that all accounting is done in accordance with applicable federal laws. And this is, of course, extremely important because of the capital stacking between not just general obligation bonds, but funds that are coming in through different federal programs. The accounting there is deeply important in order to make sure you get the match and also to avoid audit findings. Section 18 makes conforming changes to the bill, but I want to highlight the existing language in the statute contained within Section 18. Here ensures that the provisions of NRS 338, which is the public works statutes, apply to any contracts or construction through the bank. This applies whether or not a portion or the entirety of the project is funded by funds from the Infrastructure Bank. This ensures that projects that are undertaken are using Nevada-based companies, Nevada-based workers, and those workers are paid fairly equitably. Section 19 allows any division of the Department of Transportation, the Department of Business and Industry, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, the Department of Conservation and National Resources, our office, the Governor's Office of Energy, or any other governmental unit may, to the extent that money is available, provide technical service, support, and assistance to the bank. And finally, Section 20 ensures that the bill can become operational beginning on July 1st, 2020. This will ensure that we can not only get a pipeline of projects ready in anticipation of funding that is already coming in from the American Rescue Plan and the American Jobs Plan. And I'm not here referring to the larger bucket of state coronavirus relief fund dollars, but the 91 other buckets, some of which are related to infrastructure, but also any forthcoming infrastructure work at the federal level. Basically, we're trying to be ready.
So with that, I think we can go back and go to some of the questions section by section. I think the one I'm really trying to understand, and I know you know exactly what I'm going to ask, is social infrastructure. I'm sure that's the one that folks are the most curious about. And I was looking at the definition and just kind of want to understand exactly how will the board look at that? How will that be quantified? I know they're going to have to come up with a matrix on how they're going to do all these things, but I'm just wanting to understand the social infrastructure, and especially, and coming from the world that I come in, affordable housing, homelessness, and food security. How do those all fit as pieces of this puzzle? Because Lord knows they need help. We need to address the issues in the state. But how will the Infrastructure Bank work in conjunction with some of those projects? Because I'm not sure if those are the kind of projects that would be able to leverage the other dollars. So how does that all fit together?
So, Treasurer Conine, for the record, thank you for the question. Broadly, we wanted to make sure that the bank had the availability and the possibility of doing any work that might come before it. So if a program exists at the federal level, that we don't find ourselves saying, oh gosh, I wish I'd asked for it. More specifically on the social infrastructure front, there are times where the availability of federal funds requires us to have a facility. And I'll use federally qualified health centers there as a broad thing, right? But we know if we are to build one, and it exists in the right place and it has the population around it that can support it, that there are federal dollars that support it. But oftentimes, the cost of originally building it is the holdup. There are also opportunities in the health space. You speak to individuals who are housing insecure. I think that's a real opportunity and certainly one that's all on our minds these days. Sometimes the facility is the thing that we have trouble funding, not the ongoing cost, because there are ongoing programs. We know, and we've talked about this in our grants bill, there's more than $1 billion of funding that if we just got up to the per capita level, we could pull in. Some of that we don't get because we don't have the facilities for it. right? We literally don't have the thing to apply for. So in a case like that, the bank could look at that and say, well, look, we can invest in this. We'll be able to get paid back because of the additional funds that are coming in that'll support the structure, right? Maybe that payback is a little longer. Maybe that payback has less interest to outside capital, for instance, because they're not going to get the return that they would get on a energy project or a water project, something that has a more effective dedicated stream. But if it can allow us to fix a long-term systemic problem and open up some of those federal dollars, we want the flexibility to be able to do it. But let me follow up with this. Those are going to be harder. That is a harder project. We're not going to come out the door, I don't expect, and of course this would be a decision for the board, but we won't come out the door doing a series of those projects right away because those projects are going to be riskier on their face than a project that is attached to an existing revenue stream for, say, like a water project or an energy project. And so I think with any of these, we're going to have to look at how many jobs does it create, how quickly does it create those jobs, and more importantly, or as importantly, what's the likelihood that we get paid back, right? And we're going to have to weigh all of those things together while making sure that we're using, again, those 94 or 93 buckets coming in from the American Rescue Plan, the however many billions of dollars would show up through the American Jobs Plan, and every other source of federal funding we can kick a rock over.
Okay, thank you very much. I know we have a number of questions. Oh, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a follow-up question on that. Thank you for the explanation of what the social ones, because that was a question that I had. But hearing your answer to that question, when you look at the social needs that are listed there, affordable housing, homelessness, food insecurities, and education, a lot of those issues are systemic issues in communities of color. But if you go to section 15 and look at the board makeup, can you tell us who's on the board and how many members on the board come from communities of color to help in addressing some of those social needs?
Treasurer Conan, thanks for the question. I think that speaks to a larger issue we have in state government, right? State government looks like me. That's not super effective. I don't know that we're going to solve that through the makeup of the board, but certainly the governor has 2 appointees, and I think that would be an opportunity to fix some of those problems. But I also think that the makeup of the board itself is not the extent of the people who are going to be part of the conversation. And I think this is hopefully a continuing theme that you hear when we talk about how we can best address long-term systemic issues, but also how best we can use these resources that are coming in from the federal government. It can't just be the 3 or 4 or 10 people in the government who are sitting on the board. It has to be stakeholders. It has to be individuals in the communities who need help because, and we set this up with the Every Nevadan Recovery Framework, and I don't want to get too off topic, but because all of the ideas aren't going to come from inside the executive branch, all the ideas aren't going to come from inside the legislative branch. We know that there are thousands of community members who have problems that can be solved. And so as we're determining how to expend capital, we're going to be looking to everyone for ideas and then try to make sure that those ideas and those needs are fixed, right?
Madam Chair, just a follow-up. I agree with you completely. However, we have seen in this legislative body that the conversation changes by who's actually at the table directing the conversation. So as we look at who sits on the board, those that sit on the board may bring a different perspective, life experiences to the board and help make those connections with the stakeholders in the community. So if the board does not reflect the diversity of the state that we proudly live in, I would hope that as we move forward and making new appointments to that we do make those appointments that reflect the diversity of the state.
Treasurer Conan, for the record, I hear you. I agree with you. And certainly those are the governor's appointees, and I would never speak for the governor, but I will certainly convey that message.
Thank you. I did have Ms. Miller who wanted to ask earlier, so I'll go back to Ms. Miller. And then after that, I have Dr. Titus in the queue. So, Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. And I actually have 2 questions, if I may now. Sure. Thank you. Just a brief question to follow up on Vice Chairman Monroe Moreno. When it comes to the makeup of the board, I notice that we have a lot of department heads. There's not actually anyone with any type of banking and lending and more specifically, compliance experience. So I'm not sure why that wasn't considered, but there definitely needs someone, being the director of a department or agency is not the same as having direct actual banking experience and understanding the federal compliance and that. So if you could briefly respond to that on if there was a discussion or why those aren't included.
Treasurer Conine for the record. So when it speaks to being able to talk to other departments for assistance, one of the things we've been able to do in standing up the first piece of the bank and in these conversations is to employ a lot of the individuals the Treasurer's office uses all the time. So bond counsel, municipal advisors, financial advisors, folks who do have experience in the bank space. And of course, in your Treasury, we do a fair amount of banking. So from a compliance perspective, we feel comfortable internally, but as we expand and put the bylaws of the board together, a lot of that work is going to be around making sure that we have the team of individuals so that when a specific loan is placed, that we make sure that we're in compliance. And it's going to be even more important as we're stacking capital from various sources because that compliance just expands, right? If you've got federal capital and state capital, that's two compliance pieces of business that have to work together.
So then your office will be responsible for the compliance?
The board will be able to, Treasurer Conine for the record, I'm sorry, the board will be able to bring in resources from everywhere, but certainly our office will play a big role in the compliance, as will the Controller's office, as will the FID through the Department of Business and Industry.
My next question, Treasurer, is under Section 16, and I guess I'm just trying to get an idea of what type of, if there's any type of actual consumer banking happening under Section 16, number 4, 2E, it mentions proceeds from the issuance of bonds and other securities. So oftentimes, states and even the federal government have allowed citizens to actually purchase bonds and such like that from, whether it's war bonds or, whatever from these municipal types of banks. So I was just wondering, is that going to be available to our Nevadans to actually invest into the state and while investing into their own? Is there any type of consumer investment available like that?
Treasurer Conine for the record, I really appreciate the question. We started talking about that a while ago. Haven't talked about it recently. I think it's a very interesting idea because when you look at other countries, one of the ways that they're financing infrastructure is sort of a broad shared use investment, right? Where people in an area invest in a project that's going to help their area. I don't think that's a phase one piece of the bank because we want to make sure that it works, and especially when you're not just bringing in institutional investors, right? Folks who do this professionally every day. If you were to go out into the retail space, you really want to make sure, right, that it is deeply buttoned up, very, very risk adverse, right? And I think while that is where the bank ends up, and a product that I'd love some treasurer in the future and some board of directors in the future to be able to offer, we're not going to start there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome, Ms. Miller. Dr. Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Treasurer Conine, for being here today and giving us these explanations, and always appreciate what you're trying to do for the citizens of our great state. Having been through this bill from its inception, I have questions regarding, it seems to me there's been a kind of a change in philosophy of what this bank's going to do. Specifically, my question is in regard to what you've eliminated from the bill. So looking at the bill itself, and we're looking at Section 9, you've taken out some description on specifically regarding highways, highway funds, engineering of roads, and those type of entities or projects. Are we still going to use, because conceptually this was really about, in my mind initially, a number of sessions ago, about funding highway projects, working projects, infrastructure projects. This bill seems to kind of blow that up and really expand what is being covered. So can you clarify that our roads are still going to be part of this, and we're not kind of taking money away from the actual infrastructure of the roads and highway projects?
Treasurer Conine for the record, and thank you for the question. This bill is an expansion. we don't actually remove the ability for the bank to do anything in this. The struck language is specifically around the types of federal accounts, and so we wanted to say broadly whatever accounts were necessary in order to be in compliance, which we do at the end of that section, as opposed to saying we're going to use this specific account for this specific thing, this specific account for that specific thing, because functionally, if it's statutory and the federal law changes, then we're hanging out for a bit, right? So that is an expansion language. But from a focus of the bank, all projects that preserve capital, create jobs, make a better Nevada are on the table.
Right. Follow up, Madam Chair. So initially, Assemblyman Hafen asked regarding the matching funds and could we leverage these for that. So back to that kind of thought, we're now funding this not with federal money, but we're asking for a fund for the state dollars, correct, as the seed money?
Treasurer Conan, for the record, yes.
So that would enable us, because I had concerns in the past, could we use federal dollars to leverage federal dollars? So when we're talking about that concept of matching funds, when we're talking about maybe if we have, $1 frequently here in this committee that, boy, if we could fund this with our general funds, we'll get maybe 2 for 1 or 3 for 1, et cetera. And so just to be clear, it makes sense, and I just want to make sure that's what we're doing here, as opposed to funding it with federal dollars, maybe taking money away from highway, federal funds. We're using our state dollars to hopefully leverage, and not always in every case maybe, but we can use these for federal funds now, as opposed to that conflict of could we use federal funds to get matching federal funds. Is that where we're going with this?
Treasurer Conan, for the record, yeah. That's a perfect explanation, because I think we were able to create additional bonding affordability this year because of really two things, right? We sharpened our pencil, got a little better at the math. And number two, you all made the hard decisions during the special session to make the cuts, which now we're able to restore, that allowed us to keep one of the highest bond rating that the state's ever had. That lets us borrow more funds and be able to use them for things like this. And in your description about the proper allocation of capital and having money in different buckets we can use is perfect, because we know we can't use federal dollars, and this is in the ARP guidance, but it's in most guidance. We can't use federal dollars as the state match for federal dollars, right? A thing cannot be, right, okay. So because we've got that, now we've got the 75 million, and as other capital comes in, all capital has some strings attached to it, right? Bonding dollars for the state can only be used constitutionally for certain purposes, which is good. Private capital that comes in from outside groups who want to invest in Nevada will have strings attached to it, whatever strings they put on it. And we'll either decide that we want to take it with those strings or not. Federal dollars comes in with strings. So the more buckets of potential capital are there for the bank, the easier it is to build the puzzle piece of a project.
A final question with that. Will these funds, if I might, Madam Chair, these funds have to be projects within the state of Nevada?
Treasurer Conan, for the record, yes.
And I just wondered, because there's desalination terms here, I just want to make sure we don't have some water plant sitting off the Pacific Ocean desalinating, and we're going to fund that. So just needed some clarification.
Treasurer Conan, for the record, our intention is to create Nevada projects using Nevada money that become Nevada jobs.
Madam Chair, for the questions. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. And along those same lines, and then I will go to Mr. Watts. So, and that's one of the things I was trying to follow, the color of money, as I have learned hanging out with my fiscal folks. I call the Nevada money blue. I call the federal money green. Don't know where the county money is because we don't see it that often. But we use the Nevada money to pull down the federal money. That all goes into a pot at the county level. Then the county needs to pay back the state. So when the county pays back the state, even though it could possibly be federal dollars they're paying the state back with, that federal dollar turns back into a state dollar? Or am I just way overthinking this thing?
Treasurer Conan, for the record, I think those are both true. I think we're probably overthinking it to some extent because it is deeply complicated. And I think this is where Assemblywoman Miller's comment becomes so important. That tracking of funds becomes important because the federal government, Office of Inspector General, Treasury, if it's ARP funds or whomever else, is going to look and make sure that we are in compliance. And so the important work is making sure that we're able to track those dollars as they go. I think the description you made, right, where it would be loaned to, say, a county entity who would build us something, we would get paid back over time, the bank would get paid back over time. Conceptually, right, from a fungibility of money standpoint, that money is now red state money? What color was state money? I'm so sorry.
We're blue.
We're blue. Okay,
We're
right.
blue.
That makes sense. So the blue state money, right, goes back in, and the bank has the corpus made up of its funds.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to go to Mr. Watson, or is it a follow-up, Majority Leader? No, I'm going to go to Mr. Watson, then I'll come back to the Majority Leader. Mr. Watts.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Treasurer, for the presentation. I will say, I'm interested in some of the expansions here, particularly around recycling, sustainability, renewable energy, social infrastructure, and the water and wastewater projects, and particularly how we can leverage kind of green infrastructure projects through this bank. And I'm glad that you brought up some of the existing state revolving loan funds. So one of the questions I had was, can you explain, I think you've done a great job of talking about how we can use this to leverage federal funds, other equity, and some of the local investments. But I do know that as we're broadening the scope of this bank, there are some existing state programs and pots of money. So could you just talk a little bit about how you see this interacting and coordinating with some of the existing funding pools that are available, particularly when it comes to water and wastewater, but any other areas where we may have some existing state pots, and how do we combine and collaborate those things so that they're working collectively and not at odds with each other?
Treasurer Conan, for the record, thanks for the question, because it gets to one of the other larger purposes of the bank, which is coordination. Right? And the breakdown of silos, not just between agencies of state government, but between municipalities and cities, right? We saw this with ARA. There were projects that didn't get funded because cities next to each other were proposing the exact same thing and had clearly never talked. We can do a better job of that, and hopefully the bank can help on that front. Now, when we talk about clean water, drinking water, things that are coming through WIFIA or through the state revolving funds, those are projects that have specific rules around them, right? And sometimes the size of the project, the size of that revolving fund is not large enough to do the project that they want to do, but the project pencils. It just doesn't have the right amount of capitalization there. Or they're overextended is the wrong word, fully committed into other projects. Maybe there's a project that in their rubric isn't at the top of the list, but in our rubric from the number of jobs it creates over the period of time it creates them would be, right? But the central point is coordination. If the bank is to be successful, all state infrastructure banks that are successful anywhere deeply focus on communication and coordination, not just with other pools of money, but with the federal government and our delegation, with stakeholders in the communities that we're trying to help, with experts within different fields, right? Talking to health experts to make sure that we solve an FQHC desert, talking to fresh food financing people and trying to figure out what is the reason why we don't have a grocery store where we want a grocery store, and is that something that the bank can invest in and preserve capital? Is that an investment we can make and get paid back for, right? And all of that comes down to coordination, and all of that comes down to communication. And if there's one thing we learned over the last year, everybody in this building, in our building, in all the buildings, is that we could probably stand to talk a little more and coordinate a little more. We're going to do it. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much for that, Treasurer Conine. I appreciate that. And just kind of along those similar lines, looking at some of the changes to qualified borrower in Section 12, great to see that we've added some of our tribal communities explicitly into this. And then I see that there's also been some changes to the definition for private nonprofit entities. And I was just wondering, I know that, we usually think of a certain set of nonprofits, but I know that there's a lot of different designations, including cooperatives. And so I was just wondering if you could speak briefly to that. Would cooperatives be something that would be eligible for as qualified borrowers under this, in your opinion?
It's Treasurer Conine for the record. I believe it is, and I think it is, but I will, if it's okay with the chair, turn around and look at the other people in the room and make sure no one's shaking their head at me. Yes.
You're welcome. Ms. Benitez-Thompson.
Thanks so much. So I wanted to go back to a piece that we were talking about, because I think I think we were kind of begging the question coming out of section 16 about what reporting and accountability there will be. So although we don't see it in this bill here, I don't think it's in here, but later in the chapter, we do see the requirement for reports to the legislature, and we just haven't seen those because the account hasn't been doing anything yet. So now that are investing resources into it, we will be seeing those reports. I imagine that it will be a combination of a report / financial statement, something along the lines of what we see with the permanent school fund. So we see kind of what's happening with the capital, what's happening with the investments, where those dollars are going at, how those payment schedules are coming back in, and all of that kind of stuff. So there will be a document out there to live by that we can go back and reference and kind of see clearly where things are going, and also what other additional dollars are coming in terms of those federal dollars as well. So we'll have a chance to see it, and then, hopefully everyone read it every year, because we all know we all read every report we ask to be produced in this legislature, right?
Treasurer Conine for the record, yes.
I love those answers, Treasurer. Thank you very much. Those are great answers. So with that, I have Ms. Gorlow next in the queue, and then I'll go to Ms. Peters from there. So Ms. Gorlow.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here. You've touched on some of the questions that I had, but going back to the whole infrastructure. When I think of infrastructure, I'm thinking of roads, I'm thinking of sewage, and maybe some of the recycling, but I wanted to touch base on Section 3 where it talks about other infrastructures, and specifically 3.1 where it's promoting economic development. So would things like a stadium or a casino that would promote economic development, would those be the kind of projects? And could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Treasurer Conine for the record, that's not what we're thinking there. We're thinking about economic development through traditional infrastructure, right? So if you think about the things that the bank could invest in, we could perhaps loan money to a community in order to expand electricity into a new manufacturing center, or to expand water into a new manufacturing center, to build, to help build a sewer or water treatment plant that could help create more affordable housing, right? That type of build, as opposed to one large scale. Also, just from a size of bank perspective, will be a bit before we could create a stadium.
Thank you. That was kind of my thought process, but I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Ms. Tolles, I'll put you on the list, but I have Assemblywoman Peters next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation on this bill. I'm really excited about having this bank established and the work that will be done on coordinating projects in the state. That to me is really a kind of a missing link in how we get work done in this state. In addition to the accountability metrics, right? Like when we have funded projects, making sure there's some kind of accountability for those projects actually going into some kind of like tangible effort. My question has to do, though, with, and we've had conversations about bonds and investments and what does that mean and look like in the state of Nevada, so it's kind of a similar question with regards to this. Can you talk a little bit about what it is that brings outside investment into a bank like this? What are the metrics that we've established at the state that encourage people to put money towards this kind of a bank structure?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, and I apologize, Chair, because I can't do a yes answer to this one, but I'll try to keep it short. The things that incent outside entities to invest in the bank are the same types of things that incent investments into anything. Risk-adjusted return, right? So how much am I going to get paid back, adjusted for how much risk I'm taking? And when a state infrastructure bank is funded, that risk by definition goes down a little bit, right? Because we all have the public entity risk. No one gets paid more if the bank makes more money, right? So you're removing sort of that desire to chase yield. So that's one piece. So the risk is relatively low. Two, sometimes I'll look at the types of jobs that are created, right? So some of the groups we've been talking to and some of the groups that invest in infrastructure banks like this or similar funds like this are union pension funds who are looking to put existing members back to work. So they'll be interested, for instance, a trade that does some sort of work, will be interested in investing in projects that do that sort of work and will then hire its members. We're also dealing with a sort of an interesting thing that's happening in capital markets right now, and I'll do the really short version, but I'd love to talk about this for a couple of hours if you find yourself with the time. The yield rates for treasuries and agencies, sort of your typical fixed income universe, are very, very low right now. It's one of the reasons why we can borrow money at such a low rate. It's also one of the reasons why we can't invest at a high rate, because things are relatively cheap. Any inflationary pressures will, of course, move that up over time, but it lets us borrow money very cheaply. The other side is there's an investment group, and that investment group has to invest in different tranches. They've got an equity tranche, which is now hyper heated, right? It's grown. It's too big. If they've got limits on how much they can invest in equities, they're probably at those limits. And then they have a fixed income tranche, which needs to go to some investment like a bond. Fixed incomes through treasuries are very, very, are yielding close to nothing, right? Close to nothing. And so there is capital that's sitting on the sidelines, rolling in money market funds over and over, looking for infrastructure plays. Some of those plays have to be domestic. We'd like to be one of them.
Thank you for the response. And maybe in the interim, we can sit down and have that multi-hour conversation.
Treasurer Conan, for the record, we love talking about bonds.
And if you'd have told me just a few years ago, I would have understood that conversation as it went back and forth. I have thought you were nuts, but somehow it has all sunk in over the years. So with that, next I have Ms. Tolles.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good to see you, Treasurer. And I too am excited about this. I supported it back in 2017, so it's exciting to see it start to, as Majority Leader said, grow legs, we hope, and really move forward. So my question is just back to certainly a topic of interest in Section 6. The social infrastructure also includes, I noticed, education, and I know that one of the gaps that we have capital funding for our schools. I know that that's an ongoing conversation typically at the county level across the state, but we don't provide funding for capital for charter schools. Is this an avenue where charter schools could apply for infrastructure capital to help with just the school construction side of things?
Treasurer Conan, for the record, I'll be honest, Assemblywoman, I hadn't considered it, but from a broad stroke perspective, I would think, yes, the question will always come down to, within the bylaws and the decisions of the board, what is the construction, what is the project, what is the investment, what is the loan that has the highest likelihood of getting paid back, creates the most jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So depending on how that rubric gets set up, I think any project could be on the table.
And if I could expand upon that conversation, I believe the Charter School Authority actually has a CIP component already. So there are options out there currently for those types of things. I would just wonder how they would, as a charter school, pay it back, because their source of income is the state per pupil funding, and if they were paying it back that way, that would be less money going to the students. So I think that's probably a much deeper conversation, and I think that's one of the thresholds that's been tough for them to access that CIP component at the Charter School Authority. So there have been conversations about capital improvement in charters in this building for a long time. So with that, sure, Assemblywoman Tolles.
Thank you, and this is maybe just a higher level follow-up, is just that rubric is, where would somebody access that if the public wanted to see, once that's developed, where would that be published on the Treasurer's website? How would we be able to see what the decision-making matrix looks like?
Treasurer Conan, for the record, and actually the creation of that decision-making matrix will be the first real work of the board. right, to determine how we can quantifiably look at projects, making sure that we're talking to stakeholders, not just in the communities that we're trying to develop, but people who have done this work in other states, right? There is, and I don't think this will surprise anyone, there are people who do infrastructure bank work a lot, and they've seen what works, what doesn't work, what's worked domestically, what's worked internationally, and they're going to help the board come up with what we would hope is a best of breed rubric. Then that rubric, we'll publish it everywhere. It'll be on our website, it'll be on the Infrastructure Bank's website. Hopefully we can host it on a legislative website, because we want people to understand how it works, right? The point of the bank is transparency, because transparency leads to trust, trust leads to investment.
All right, so with that, I'll go back to, I'm sorry?
So just I understand it correctly, the board will have that website then, or the treasurer will have that website where that transparency exists? I'm sorry if I...
Oh, Treasurer Conan, for the record, I don't know. I think the board will make that decision, but I can promise you that the rubric will be public and available.
So with that, I'll go back to Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Treasurer Conine. I too am excited about this infrastructure bank and have been since the time we started this conversation. But we also had a conversation about a green bank that was initiated. What makes this infrastructure bank different than the green bank? Are they in conflict? And then as we talk about the jobs that will be created, will there be a report of how many jobs, who received those jobs, what communities did we impact with those jobs? Both of those questions.
Treasurer Conan, for the record, I'll take the second question first because I have an answer to it. We'll release a report with short-term jobs, long-term jobs, comparison to expectation, because of course we'll have to have some idea of what we think is going to happen before we make the investment, and then we'll have to know what happens on the end. So you'll be able to see where we got it right, where we got it wrong, what types of projects we're getting it right more often on, where we overshoot, undershoot, et cetera. All of that needs to be transparent. And again, this is the benefit of trying to go after outside capital. That's required when you're trying to go get outside capital. That's a choice that you make by being in the market. Additionally, it's a choice that we make by using the state's funds, right? So we want to make sure that this is deeply transparent. In your first question about the Green Bank, I don't know a lot about the Green Bank, and so if there's someone behind me that does, I would encourage them to sit in that seat. But if there isn't anyone here, we can follow up on that. I can tell you that the goal of the Infrastructure Bank is to work in collaboration with every existing state, municipal, county, water district funding source that's out there, right? And where there is conflict, where someone is already doing a thing, for instance, to Assemblyman Watts's, right, if there's a small water project that's already being funded perfectly capably through one of our revolving water funds, great. We don't need to recreate the wheel.
Perfect, thank you for that. I appreciate it, Madam Chair, for the second question.
You're very welcome. So with that, committee members, do I have anyone else with any questions at this time? And I'll just let folks know this is not one we're going to move immediately. I think the committee needs to be able to digest it a little bit and make sure that they're comfortable with it, but we also do know that we have time frames that we have to work within. So just want to make sure that that's on the record. Ms. Peters, if Treasurer promises to answer briefly.
I hope this is a very brief. I just want to clarify. We talked a little bit about the social infrastructure definition, and I want to make sure, because at the federal level we're talking about child care or dependent care being included in the new infrastructure and jobs creation through federal funding. I want to make sure that that's captured, that those kinds of infrastructures are captured in that definition, and that you don't have to answer that today. I think it may be in some of the education components and other components, but just want to make sure that we are clear that if those dollars come down and they're delegated to those efforts, that we can fund those kinds of projects.
Treasurer Conan, we believe we can.
Very good answer. All right, with that. Ms. Benitez-Thompson, did you have any other questions?
Thank you so much. I was just trying to clarify, because I was trying to gauge how much of this was when we talk about kind of governmental entities and we talk about the definition in section 12 of like a qualified borrower. I wanted to get the scope of the universe of the folks who are going to kind of be playing in this, who could submit an application and what some of those application and projects will look like. So how much of this do you imagine, just because I don't know, and is going to be a government unit on its own or private-public partnerships that you see coming from this? Because I think the language opens up the door. There's nothing in here to exclude public-private partnerships. So I was just trying to gauge kind of when we see these projects hit the street, what they might look like, because we've been talking a lot about, and you mentioned kind of some unsexy projects, sewers and water stuff, which is fun for some, but obviously different than some other projects that are out there. We're not going to go out there and build high rises, I don't think. So I guess tell me, unless it's a low income high rise, but I guess tell me what we might expect a mix of some of these projects to look like.
Treasurer Conan, for the record, I think you'll start by seeing primarily directly government units, right? The water projects, the I hate to say less sexy because I think they're, but the less exciting, right? And then public-private partnerships require the public not just to know, or the private entity not just to know about the bank, but to see its level of success and see that that's an opportunity to work. So if there are projects that are out there that are P3 types, I think they would come on a little bit later in the scope. I think a majority of the funding, and 80% of the funding, a majority of the funding sticks with your very traditional governmental entity projects, and then the P3 projects could come from that if there's an interest to them, right? I mean, the other question is what capital markets look like at the time and whether or not a P3 is the most effective way for something to get built.
Okay, because there's other types of bonding out there, right? We have the private activity bond, so if you want to do some economic development stuff, you've got stuff like that. In the past couple of years, we've talked about using that for high-speed rail, but it can only be used for two purposes, economic development or housing, so we've been pushing it towards housing, right? All that money, and then the other thing looks like it might be fleshing out on its own, and private maybe with federal, but not having to take our state's PAB dollars for it. And we've got in our economic Governor's Office of Economic Development, we've got provisions in there that allow for different kinds of things, right? Which is how we bonded the water line for the effluent from Washoe County out to Trick, right? So I've been one where we stand things up and then you sit back over a decade and watch to see how it plays out. So knowing that we can walk through that door with this language, I don't think is inherently offensive. I think it's just kind of this idea of eyes wide open. What might this look like in year 1, year 3, year 5, year 10, or year 20, and the public purposes that we're serving. So just wanted to make sure we kind of had, a full awareness on this committee of what we're marching towards.
Treasurer Conan, for the record, I completely agree. I think awareness is important. I also think that the goal of the bank is to create flexibility so that wherever the opportunities and the jobs and the needs are, the bank can fit that role while making sure that the bank is fitting a role that does truly serve the public purpose as opposed to the other thing.
All right, thank you, Ms. Benitez-Thompson. So I'm going to ask the last question here, I believe, and then we'll go through the hearing process. So, Mr. Treasurer, what happens if they don't pay you back? What's the provision? How do you handle it if we do this and something happens? Because no one had ever thought that we'd have this many solar projects about a decade ago that we ended up having to, in essence, write off. So, everyone's very well intentioned, but what happens when something like that might happen? How is that addressed going forward?
Treasurer Conan, for the record, so the rules around a default in the form of a loan would be set up by the board within the bylaws, and will probably be very specific to whatever the project is, right? So if we're talking about the expansion of a highway, if for some reason, say a GID paid for the expansion of a highway, right, and then that GID fails, well, that highway is still there. The asset still exists. They don't own the asset. The asset is a state asset, right, because we can't use state dollars to invest in something that is not owned by the state, right? And so the state would retain the asset, the funding stream for that asset would need to be replaced. Depending on what the asset is, I think would control on how it got replaced. But I think the question is really, what do you do if there's a loss? And I think the goal of a bank is to both mitigate those losses and to make sure that you have a diversified enough portfolio that if some project for some reason does not pay back, that does not threaten the overwhelming stability of the bank.
Okay. And I guess my final question is, as a governmental entity, would the legislature have an opportunity to access the infrastructure bank for any needs it might need in the future?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, I hadn't contemplated that, so I'm speaking a little extemporaneously, but I don't see why not.
You know I love to build buildings.
Right. Yeah, I don't see why not. And functionally, if the infrastructure bank is the most effective way to do a thing, it would make sense that the legislature or anyone else would want to use that tool that is most effective. And I think we do have some experience in Nevada, things like the Bryan Building, right, which were designed and built through the Nevada Real Property Corporation, which were done a little bit differently because at the time that was the most effective way to create a project. I think that's what we're looking for, Chair, is another tool that can be used to achieve the purposes of the state.
Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure that everybody was included in the conversation. So usually we do that nice big CIP bill, and that's the jobs bill of the session, but I think the governor and the treasurer probably stole our thunder this year. So, but it's good. It's all good. It's building things, it's jobs, and it's good jobs. So that's the most important component of it. So with that, I don't see any other questions at this time. Thank you very much, Treasurer. We appreciate you walking through the bill and doing the presentation along with the governor. With that, I'm just going to go ahead and open it up. Are there others in the room in support of Senate Bill 430? If you'd like to go ahead and come forward, put your testimony on the record. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and members of the Assembly Ways and Means Committee. My name is Sabra Newby. I'm representing UNLV. And as producers of workers and the workforce of the future, we are in favor of this bill and the changes that we believe it will make in our state to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room in support of Senate Bill 430? Not seeing anyone else come forward at this time. Broadcast Services, do we have anyone on the line in support of Senate Bill 430? Oh, are you in support? Hold on just a moment. Had one person walk into the room. Thank you, Broadcast Services. Please proceed.
Hello, Will Adler, representing the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe. We'd like to briefly thank the bill sponsors for inclusion of tribal communities in the bill and add our support to Senate Bill 430. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we can go to Broadcast Services. Those in support, please.
If you would like to testify in support on SB 430, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 020, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good morning, Chair Carlton and members of the committee. For the record, Mary Beth Sewald, S-E-W-A-L-D. I'm the president and CEO of the Vegas Chamber. The Vegas Chamber thanks Governor Sisolak for his support to Nevada's infrastructure bank with SB 430. We do support both the policy and fiscal components of this bill. We believe that by investing in the infrastructure bank and making it a strategic priority of the state, Nevada can better plan and build the infrastructure necessary to help diversify the economy and create jobs. This investment by the state is a crucial step as we work together to rebuild and reinvent Nevada's economy together. We do urge this committee to support this important piece of legislation and pass SB 430. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next person, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 155, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Chair Carlton and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christy Cabrera, CHRISTI, and I'm the Policy and Advocacy Director for the Nevada Conservation League here in support of SB 430. SB 430 will allow the infrastructure bank to be used for water and wastewater infrastructure, renewable energy infrastructure, recycling, and sustainability infrastructure. Nevada produces virtually no fossil fuels, but is rich in clean energy potential. Focusing on homegrown renewable energy will keep Nevada's money invested in our state and grow our clean energy economy. SB 430 will allow our state to make investments in infrastructure to reduce pollution, address environmental injustice, and prepare for the threats of climate change, all while building back an economy that puts every community back to work. We urge the committee's support and thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits, 500. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You may begin.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. John Leileu, L-E-L-E-U, here today representing NAOP. NAOP would like to express its strong support for the bill and thank the Treasurer and the Governor for bringing it. As an original proponent of the Infrastructure Bank bill in 2017, we are extremely excited that the Treasurer has come up with a creative way to get the Infrastructure Bank up and running. And we look forward to working with the Treasurer and the Governor in the upcoming weeks and months on the and to get Nevada building again. Thank you all, and I'm available for any questions if anyone has anything.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits, 746. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good morning, Chair Carlton, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Devlin Daneshru, DEVLIN-DANESHFOROUZ, on behalf of NV Energy. SB 430 would play a pivotal role in Nevada's economic recovery. As outlined by the governor in his State of the State address, a well-funded state infrastructure bank will allow Nevada to leverage outside capital to fund important infrastructure projects that will create thousands of good-paying jobs for Nevadans. NV Energy is in the business of building the infrastructure that powers our state's economy. Financing that infrastructure is a different story for us due to the support we receive from our parent company. But other infrastructure projects sometimes do not go forward due to lack of financing. A well-functioning state infrastructure board can be immensely influential in assisting those areas that need help to break ground. NV Energy supports additional investments in infrastructure projects that will yield the highest return for communities in need of investment, and that is why we are here today supporting SB 430. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And the next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits, 292. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good morning, Rob Benner, ROB, BENNER with the Northern Nevada Building Trades. We believe this bill would help create good paying union jobs that are a pathway to the middle class as we recover from the pandemic. It's critical that we invest in our infrastructure and make sure we're creating good paying jobs for Nevada's workers. This is a long-term investment in Nevada's future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Chair, there are no more callers in support on SB 430.
Thank you very much. We'll go to opposition. Or is there any opposition here in the room in Carson City? Seeing none, broadcast services, is there any opposition on the phone line?
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 430, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in neutral here in the committee room in Carson City? Seeing none, broadcast services, is there neutral on the phone line?
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 430, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one to testify in neutral.
Thank you very much. Mr. Treasurer, did you have any closing comments? I'll give you about 2 sentences.
Thank you, Chair Carlton. I just wanted to express on behalf of myself and the governor our gratitude for both hearing this bill and inviting us into the People's House to talk about jobs, jobs, jobs.
Thank you very much. You are welcome in the People's House. With that, committee members, I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing on SB 430. And give me just a second and we'll figure out what direction we're going from here. All right, so committee members, as we said from the beginning, now we're going to go back to the top of the batting order. We are at Senate Bill 410. Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 410 makes a general fund appropriation of $18,643,998 to the Central Repository for Nevada Records of Criminal History of the Department of Public Safety for the continuing costs of the modernization project for Nevada criminal justice information. I would note that fiscal staff has worked in consultation with the agency and the governor's finance office and has identified approximately $3 million in available reserves that could be applied towards the modernization project, therefore reducing general fund appropriations to $15,643,998. The agency targets a 60-day reserve level, and based on the information provided by the agency, the closing actions of the money committees, and staff's analysis, the budget is projected to have a 144-day operating reserve in fiscal year 2022 and a 130-day operating reserve in fiscal year 2023. Authorizing the use of $3 million of reserve funds would still allow the agency to maintain its targeted level of operating for the reserve.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaufman. So with that, Ms. McKay, there you are. Okay, got you. So, welcome to the committee. Would you like to just give us a brief overview and we can go from there? The explanation was pretty clear, so please proceed.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Mindy McKay. I'm the Division Administrator of the Department of Public Safety's Records, Communications, and Compliance Division. And I'm here to introduce SB 410, which provides the $18,643,998 of one-shot appropriations across the 22-23 biennium to support the ongoing Central Repository's Nevada Criminal Justice Information, NCJIS, system modernization program that will span over several biennium through 2025 for implementation and potentially thereafter for ongoing maintenance. As a reminder, this program will require additional general fund appropriations for future biennium. For brevity, I will forego explaining this program unless the committee would like me to provide a brief overview. There are letters of support on Nellis attached to this bill for your review. And with that, my team and I are happy to answer any questions, and I thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. And if you could address the adjustment from $18,643,998 to $15,643,998.
Mindy McKay for the record. What Ms. Kaufman alluded to is that, yes, we have had discussions with our various budget analysts across GFO and LCB, and we have determined that we should have $3 million in our reserves to apply toward the NCJIS modernization effort, therefore reducing this one-shot bill from $18,643,998 down to $15,643,998.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. We just need to get it on the record. It's just all part of the process. I appreciate that. So, committee members, we've had an explanation. Are there any questions from any committee members at this time on this project? Not seeing any questions from committee members, so with that, this is the hearing on SB 410, so we'll go ahead and open it up. Is there anyone in the room here to speak in support of SB 410? Ms. Ebert, this is unusual. Good
Yes.
morning. Hi.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here this morning, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Joan Ebert. I am honored to serve as your state superintendent of public instruction. What I would like to point out in support for the entire department is that we process over 15,000 applications every year that require DPS to do background checks and fingerprinting. Over the years, we unfortunately have lost teachers that want to come to our state because other states are able to produce an offer quickly, and they've been able to clear these teachers rather quickly. Ms. McKay's team, Director McKay's team, has been phenomenal in supporting us when the bubble happens, which we're right in the middle, trying to recruit and retain educators that are in the system. And I appreciate the work that they do with us each and every day. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't, that the committee was aware that we depend heavily on this team and their work. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Ms. Ebert. We do appreciate you putting that on the record. Sometimes we don't think about the downstream consequences of some of the work that we do. So with that, is there anyone else in the room in support of the bill? Not seeing anyone, I'll go to broadcast services. Is there anyone on the phone line in support of the bill?
To testify in support of the bill, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 196, please press star 6 to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Good morning, Chair Carlton, members of the committee. I'm Eric Spratley, S-P-R-A-T-L-E-Y, the Executive Director of the Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Association, here in support of Senate Bill 410, and appreciate the committee considering this important bill today. Most everyone you hear from this session will tell you that theirs is the most important bill before you, and there's truth to that. But each entity that requested support for their bill will admit their entity cannot exist without public safety. This appropriation will fund the very core of public safety in Nevada. Not just law enforcement, but every single participant who touches the criminal justice system in some way will be affected by your approval of this bill. With that, we thank the committee for considering and ultimately approving Senate Bill 410. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spratley. So with that, broadcast services, anyone else in support of Senate Bill 410?
Chair, the line is open and working. Currently, we have no additional callers.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the room in opposition to Senate Bill 410? Seeing no one in opposition, broadcast services, could you open up the phone line for opposition, please?
Chair,
To testify
there's
in
no one in
opposition?
line.
Go ahead, Mike.
Pardon me. Sorry, there's no one in. Oh, pardon me, there's one there. If you'd like to make testimony in opposition to SB 410, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition to SB 410 on the line.
Okay, thank you very much. Going to neutral, is there anyone in neutral wishing to make testimony in the committee room? Seeing none, we'll go to broadcast services. Anyone in neutral on the phone line, please?
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 410, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in neutral.
Thank you very much. Ms. McKay, did you have any closing comment?
Andy McKay for the record. I just want to thank everybody throughout the last few sessions for their support with this. It's been very exciting to see this finally move forward, and I really appreciate that. And we will see you again next session, and enjoy the last 10 days and great work on everybody's part during this pandemic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing on SB 410. And the next on the list is SB 411. Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 411 makes a general fund appropriation totaling $379,541 to the Department of Public Safety for the following: $313,157 to the Division of Parole and Probation for the replacement of computer hardware and software, and $66,384 for the Investigations Division for the replacement of computer hardware and software.
Thank you very much. And who do I have to testify? Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Natasha Koch. I'm the Deputy Chief of the Nevada Department of Public Safety Parole and Probation Division, Northern Command. Section 1 of SB 411 addresses 169 replacement computers for a total cost of $313,517 for parole and probation. This will keep our computers up to date with the EATS replacement schedule for computers that are due in the biennium. Chief Conway of the Investigation Division will speak regarding Section 2.
Please proceed.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Carlton and committee members. I'm Patrick Conway, Division Chief for the Investigation Division of the Department of Public Safety. As was mentioned, Senate Bill 411 includes the Investigation Division's request for one-shot appropriation for computer replacement. We're requesting to replace 22 computers in FY22 and 23 computers in FY23 for a total cost of $66,384 as indicated. The request complies with the EATS computer replacement schedule, as existing computers we're seeking to replace were purchased between August 2016 and June 2018. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Committee members, are there any questions of the presenters today on this issue? Not seeing any. Ms. Gorlow?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to have quick clarification because I heard her say $313,517 versus the bill saying $313,157.
Ms. Koch?
Let me clarify. Yep, let me clarify real quick. I apologize. That was $313,157. I apologize for the misspoke.
Okay, thank you. That's what we do have in the bill, so the bill is correct. That's not an issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Gorlow. So with that, not seeing any other questions or comments, this is the hearing on SB 411, so we'll go ahead and open it up. Is there anyone here in the room in support of SB 411? Not seeing anyone. Broadcast Services, would you go to the phone line, please?
If you'd like to testify in support of SB 411, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in opposition to the bill? Not seeing anyone here in the room. Can we go to the phone line for opposition?
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 411, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to give opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the room wishing to testify in neutral? Not seeing anyone come forward. Broadcast Services, is there anyone on neutral on the phone line?
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 411, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to give neutral testimony at this time.
Thank you very much. I don't believe we need any closing comments. I think we've created a thorough record. Thank you very much for being available by Zoom. Now we can let you go back to do the things you need to do today. We will close the hearing on Senate Bill 411, and we will open up the hearing on Senate Bill 412.
Thank you,
Ms.
Madam.
Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 412 makes a general fund appropriation of $53,550 to the Department of Agriculture for new laboratory equipment and maintenance contracts related to veterinary medical services.
Thank you very much. And who do we have to testify? Good morning. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Good morning, Chair Carlton, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Doug Ferris. I'm the Animal Industry Division Administrator for the Nevada Department of Agriculture. It's my honor today to present SB 412, which is an appropriation for new equipment related to the veterinary medical services. The implementation of modern molecular microbiology testing equipment at the Elko laboratory will provide an increase in sample volume as a large amount of the testing within the region is sent out to other state laboratories in Idaho, Utah, and Colorado. The testing equipment is a benchtop automated extraction instrument, which will reduce labor-intensive manual handling of samples and aids in reducing workplace injuries caused from repetitive actions. The estimated annual testing volume for this instrument would be approximately 8,500 tests. And the equipment was originally approved for the FY20 budget as a one-shot appropriation. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and budget restrictions, the instrument was eliminated from our budget spend. And with that, I am available for any questions.
With that, are there any questions from the committee members? I knew Dr. Titus was going to raise that finger, so Dr. Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir, for bringing this forward. Just a question regarding the scope of this particular machine. Will you be able to test for some of the big game, chronic wasting diseases, some of those things that we must do as if we get our tags filled? Or if we even get a tag, let alone fill it, so.
Thank you for the question, Assemblyman Titus. For the record, Doug Ferris, I'm hopeful for my tag as well. This piece of equipment, the primary function of it will be for trichomoniasis testing in the Elko area. We do have, between the two laboratories, the Sparks Laboratory and Elko, though, we do have testing equipment that we assist NDOW with for some testing when they request.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question.
You're welcome, Dr. Titus. So with that, committee members, any other questions at this time? Seeing none, I believe we can move forward with the hearing process. This is the hearing for SB 412. With that, is there anyone in support of the bill in the room? Seeing none, is there any broadcast services? Is there anyone on the phone line in support of the bill?
Chair, there is no one on the line to testify at this time.
Okay, we've got to go through the process, though. So with that, is there anyone in opposition in the room? Seeing none. Broadcast services, anyone in opposition on the line?
There's also no one to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. Anyone in neutral in the room? Not seeing any. Broadcast services, neutral position on the phone line?
There's no one to testify in neutral on the line at this time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ferris, did you want any closing comments, or are we good?
Madam Chair, I don't believe I have any closing comments. I just thank you for your time today.
Thank you for being available. We know how crazy it is trying to figure out when your bill is going to come up for hearing in the legislature, so we appreciate all the agency's flexibility as we try to get through the process these last couple days. So with that, I'm going to close the hearing on SB 412, and we'll open the hearing on SB 413.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 413 appropriates $5,409,619 to the Nevada Gaming Control Board to fund the continuing costs of the Alpha Migration Project to replace the modernize the Gaming Control Board's information system over the 2021-23 biennium.
Good morning. Welcome to the committee. Nice to see you.
You too. Good morning, Chair Carlton and members of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means. Mike Morton for the Gaming Control Board, presenting Senate Bill number 413. SB 413 appropriates approximately $5.4 million to the board for the continuation of its Alpha Migration Project, which is an ongoing agency-wide transition from the board's legacy COBOL system to new applications developed using current technologies, which will provide enhanced functionality to both internal and external users. It will also provide easier access to licensing, casino ownership and tax form information, and additional information regarding the board's enforcement cases, gaming applicant information, and gaming employee information. The board's information technology manager, Andrew Tucker, who is appearing remotely, and I are prepared to answer any questions the committee may have on the project itself.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and open it up for questions from the committee at this time. Thank you very much. I think we're good, so I don't see any questions. Is Mr. Tucker back up for you just in case?
Yes, in case you had any questions.
Okay. Thank you for being here, Mr. Tucker. Looks like you're in a good spot right now. So with that, we'll go ahead and, this is the hearing for SB 413, so we'll go ahead and open it up. So with that, seeing no one else in support in the room, we'll go to broadcast services. Anyone in support on the phone line?
Chair, there is no one to testify in support at this time.
Is there anyone in the room in opposition to SB 413? Seeing none, broadcast services, anyone in opposition on the phone line?
There is no one to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. Anyone in neutral? Not seeing anyone. Broadcast services, neutral, please.
There's also no one to testify in neutral at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, any closing comments? Thank you very much for being here. It is nice having people in the building again, so we do appreciate it. So with that, we'll close the hearing on SB 413. And we will open up the hearing on SB 414.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 414 makes a general fund appropriation of $2,943,463 to the Department of Taxation for the continuing cost of the modernization of the unified tax system as part of Project MINT.
Thank you very much, and it appears we have 4 folks from the Department of Taxation. I like your banner on that. That looks very nice. Looks very sharp. So with that, whoever is the designated person, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself, give us a brief overview, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Chair Carlton. For the record, my name is Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Department of Taxation. SB 414 before you today will appropriate funds of one-shot fund for the department's modernization project. The department has been engaged in this process of memorializing our current state assessment, business benefit analysis, and future state processes, and documenting a solution strategy, the modernization roadmap, and the business case. And in fiscal year 2020, the department hit the pause button on this project and returned the funding as a result of reducing state revenues. The next phase of the project would have been an RFP development solution and a solution selection. Replacing our system has become unavoidable, and the complexity of our system, decreasing availability of specialized knowledge and old technologies, which is a word I know you don't like to hear of COBOL, is increasingly difficult to maintain. So with this funding of $2.9 million, this will allow the department to add 4 positions on the management and implementation of the project, and as well as backfill positions. The department has moved forward with a solution, a COT solution, and this funding will allow us to go through the RFP process. This concludes our presentation, and we are available for questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Young. I only had about 10 days left, but that's okay. We're fine. So with that, committee members, are there any questions for Ms. Young and the Department of Taxation on this project? Mr. Roberts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to confirm, I didn't catch how you're going to use some of this funding for positions to manage the project? And could you just highlight the number again? I'm sorry I missed it.
Yes, thank you, Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Department of Taxation, to Assemblyman Roberts' questions. This would allow the department to add 4 FTE positions on the management and implementation of the project. These would include an IT manager 2 as a project manager, an IT professional 4 as a technical lead, a tax manager as a functional lead and subject matter expert, and then an additional organizational change manager. Then it will also allow the department to backfill a few of our positions so that we could assign our best staff to be a part of this project going forward. And it would allow for 5 backfill subject matter experts.
Thank you for the answer. And I just didn't catch all that when she said it the first time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Mr. Roberts. It's always good to clarify. Are there any other questions from any other committee members at this time? Ms. Benitez Thompson?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I like the banners too. It's really nice. It's very nice. So this will allow you, the 2.9 are for the new positions and then allow you to start the RFP process. So I imagine, as with any type of modernization project, there'll be more conversations in other legislative sessions about supporting it, the cost of whatever it is that comes back from it. So do you imagine that when you say the cost of the RFP process, that's just literally getting it out and getting the bid, or you think that that will carry you through like the first couple of years of setting it up? Modernizing it, I guess I should say.
Thank you, Melanie Young, Executive Director, to Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson's question. This would allow the department to select a vendor, and the large part of the costs to replace the system will come in the next biennium. And I do have Joe Bernardi from our information technology system that could provide a little bit more information on that timeline.
Good morning, Joe Bernardi, Acting Deputy Director of IT for Taxation, for the record. The timing for that, the biennium will be doing an RFP for the document scanning solution. We'll be looking at doing that in the first part to bring our document scanning to the first part of our process, as opposed to the last part where it is now. And while we're doing that, we'll be releasing the RFP for the COD solution in the next biennium. So we'll look to hire the vendor starting next biennium. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay. With that, committee members, are there any other questions at this time? Not seeing any other questions. This is the hearing for SB 415, so we will go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong number. This is 414. They're all too close together. 414. So with that, is there anyone here in the room in support of 414? Not seeing anyone. Broadcast services, is there anyone on the phone line?
If you would like to testify in support on SB 414, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Anyone in the room in opposition? Seeing none. Anyone on the phone line in opposition, please?
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 414, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone in neutral in the room? Seeing none. Neutral on the phone line, please.
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 414, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. So with that, we'll close the hearing on, I'm sorry, were there any closing comments, Ms. Young? No closing comments? Head shake no. This is for the record. So with that, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 414, and we will open up the hearing on Senate Bill 415, and I'll go to Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 415 appropriates general fund appropriations of $632,854 to the Department of Taxation for the relocation and consolidation of the 2 offices in the Las Vegas Valley into 1 office in Southern Nevada.
With that, Ms. Young?
Thank you, Chair Carlton, members of the Assembly Ways and Means Committee. My name is Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation. SB 415 before you today is a one-shot appropriation of general funds for the office relocation and consolidation. The bill has been amended to $632,854. This will provide the department the ability to consolidate 2 offices. Currently, we are on a month-to-month lease in our Henderson office, in which the landlord could give us a 30-day notice to vacate. This office is ideally situated in a central location with easy access. However, we are at space capacity and the office no longer meets our needs. Neither the conference room nor administrative hearing rooms has a public entrance, and this requires taxpayers to be escorted through the interior office and be supervised by staff at all times. This raises concerns with staff safety and the department's security and safeguarding of confidential records. The Department of Taxation's Las Vegas office is located on the first floor of the Grant Sawyer building, which is also at space capacity. Due to space in the small lobby, taxpayers are faced with the lack of privacy when discussing confidential tax matters. Additionally, there's only one conference room, and it's insufficient for staff meetings and must also serve as the cannabis cash count room and administrative hearings. Finally, the department managers and supervisors must travel between the two offices to ensure supervisory presence and attend meetings and staff training. This is a practice that's disruptive to both supervisors and staff. To alleviate these concerns, the department seeks to consolidate the offices into one office in the Las Vegas area. Efficiencies can be found by eliminating duplicative costs for security guards, camera coverage, armored car pickups, as well, to avoid additional costs and maintain supervisory coverage between the two offices. Further, the department hopes to find a location that can be co-located with the Cannabis Compliance Board, creating additional efficiencies. The CCB has one board and one advisory commission, and the department is staffed to 5 boards and commissions. Together, both agencies have a need for administrative hearing rooms and public meeting space. In our combined goal to find space that will allow a shared reception and public meeting space, thereby creating efficiencies for both agencies. And this concludes my testimony for SB 415, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Committee members, are there questions? Assemblywoman Tolles.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and appreciate that this is essentially a one-shot to consolidate and create efficiencies, which I'm always in favor of. Do you have an estimate of the savings that we will recoup as a result of this investment?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Tolles. Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation. And I believe, I'm not sure if Joy Grimmer has, who is our Administrative Services Officer, has an answer to that question, but overall savings can be found into the elimination of one security guard, some video camera coverage, and then combining space with the Cannabis Compliance Board, where we both have meeting rooms. I'm not sure if we have the total of all of that together.
Could we go?
Joy Grimmer for the record.
Proceed.
Sorry. So we're estimating that it'll be at least approximately $70,000 a year in the security guard savings, and then the rent would also offset that, but I don't have an exact amount because we haven't found a location yet.
Thank you very much. Any follow-up? Not seeing any. Other questions from other committee members? Not seeing any other questions. All right. Thank you very much. Very good. So with that, we'll go ahead and open it up for the hearing on 415. So is there anyone here in the room in support of Senate Bill 415? Not seeing anyone. Broadcast Services, anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in support on SB 415, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no one on the line for support at this time.
Thank you. Any opposition in the room? Seeing no opposition in the room, is there opposition on the phone line, please?
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 415, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. Anyone in the room in neutral? Not seeing any. Anyone on the phone line in neutral?
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 415, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one on the line to testify in neutral at this time.
Okay, with that, I believe we can go ahead and close the hearing on Senate Bill 415. And if I'm reading ahead just a little bit, I believe the department also has a bill, SB 423, is that correct? So we're going to go ahead and skip 418 right now. We will go right back to it, but since we have the department up on the queue right now, let's just go ahead and get that one done while we're here. So I'll give Ms. Coffin a chance to catch up with me and then proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 423 requires that as compensation to the state for the cost of collecting the tax on centrally assessed property, the Department of Taxation must, before apportioning and remitting the tax due to each county, transmit an amount of the taxes as specified by the legislature to the state treasurer for deposit to the credit of the department. Under this bill, the department is required to spend such money in accordance with its work program. In terms of fiscal impact, this is a budget implementation bill, and there are various fiscal notes that have been identified by various counties and the city of Carson as well.
Thank you very much. Ms. Young?
Thank you, Chair Carlton and members of the Assembly Ways and Means. For the record, my name is Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation. And before you today is SB 423. When the Department of Taxation was faced with budget reduction measures, our executive team met and looked at alternatives to proposing budget cuts. Our budget is primarily funded with general fund dollars, and our largest expenditure is personnel. SB 423 is one of those measures which proposes a commission to compensate the state for services of providing the valuation, billing, and collection relationship to the centrally assessed property tax. The service is provided by our local government services division, and as was stated earlier, this is a budget implementation measure. The department looked at this service, which is provided on behalf of local governments, is funded with 100% general fund currently. And this was calculated by determining the number of positions and the amount of time those positions are associated with providing this service to determine the commission to reimburse the department for these costs, which is estimated to be $135,922 in fiscal year 22, and then $137,928 in fiscal year 23. I can stop here for questions, or I can turn the time over to Jeff Mitchell to talk a little bit about centrally assessed properties and how that works.
I don't believe that's necessary at this time. I don't see any questions from the committee members right now, but in essence, the department has been performing this function with general fund, and we're going to go basically ask for the folks we're performing the function for to pay for the services that are being rendered to them. Is that correct?
Thank you, Chair Carlton, for the question. Melanie Young, Executive Director. For the record, that is correct. We would be offsetting the actual cost of performing a portion of the services that we provide on behalf of this, and it would come off the top of the taxes that are collected that are ultimately end up at the local government level.
Thank you very much. I just think it's good that we have it very clear on the record exactly what the purpose and the consequences are. So, not seeing any questions from any other committee members at this time, we'll go ahead and have the hearing on SB 418. SB 423. Is there anyone in the room wishing to make in support of SB 423? Seeing no one in support, broadcast services, anyone on the phone line in support of 423?
If you would like to testify in support on SB 423, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one on the line for support.
Thank you. Anyone in the room here for opposition? Seeing none. Broadcast Services, opposition on the phone line.
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 423, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one on the line to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Any neutral in the room? Seeing none. Is there neutral on the phone line?
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 423, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and I don't believe there's any closing comments that are needed at this time. So with that, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on 423, and we will go back to Senate Bill 418, Budget Division, Office of Finance, Office of the Governor. Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 418 makes a general fund appropriation of $422,000 to the Budget Division of the Governor's Office of Finance for the continuation of the Nevada Executive Budget System Upgrades Project.
The NEBS system. Okay. So with that, Ms. Brown, good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning. Susan Brown, Director of the Governor's Finance Office. Senate Bill 418 provides a one-time appropriation in the amount of $422,000 for the continuation of the Nevada Executive Budget System upgrade. This project was started in the current biennium, and work on this upgrade is continuing. This funding will allow for the continuation of the modernization of the interface, as well as completing system architecture upgrades. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brown. Are there any questions from any committee members at this time? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Ms. Brown. Seeing no one in the room. I mean, literally, there's nobody else in the room but us, for the record. Broadcast Services, is there anyone on the phone line in support of Senate Bill 418?
If you would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 418, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one on the line to testify in support.
Thank you very much. Anyone in the room in opposition of Senate Bill 418? Seeing none. Anyone on the phone line in opposition, please?
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 418, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. So with that, anyone in neutral in the room? Seeing none. Neutral testimony on the phone line, please.
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 418, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one on the line to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. So with that, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on Senate Bill 418, and we will open up the hearing on Senate Bill 425.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 425 makes a supplemental general fund appropriation of $76,807 to the Governor's Office of Finance, Division of Internal Audits for an unanticipated shortfall related to payroll.
Thank you very much. Ms. Brown?
Good morning. Susan Brown, Director of the Governor's Finance Office. This bill is before the committee today requests a supplemental appropriation for the Governor's Finance Office Division of Internal Audits for a shortfall in the personnel services category. During the process for the special session budget reviews, additional funds were reduced from this category in error, and this has caused the shortfall for the Division of Internal Audits in the payroll category. This will ensure that payroll costs are covered through the end of this fiscal year.
Thank you very much.
And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brown. Are there any questions from any committee members at this time? Not seeing any. Thank you, Ms. Brown. So with that, is there anyone, this is the hearing for Senate Bill 425. So is there anyone here in the room in support of Senate Bill 425? Seeing none. Broadcast Services, anyone in support on the phone line?
If you would like to testify in support on SB 425, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the room in opposition? Seeing none, anyone on the phone line in opposition, please?
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 425, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. Anyone in neutral? Seeing none, is there neutral testimony on the phone line, please?
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 425, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. So with that, I don't believe there are any other comments, so we'll go ahead and close the hearing on Senate Bill 425, and we will open up the hearing on Senate Bill 426. Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 426 makes a general fund appropriation of $1,784,500 to serve as a loan to the Division of Enterprise Information Technology Services of the Department of Administration for the replacement of the Content Manager and Portal platform. The bill requires that the division provide annual installments of 25% of the cost of the replacement of the platform beginning July 1, 2023.
Thank you very much. Ms. Brown?
Good morning, Susan Brown, Director of the Governor's Finance Office. And I believe that Laura Freed, the Department Director for Administration, will be presenting this bill.
Okay, thank you. And I do have someone here in the room also, so please introduce yourself, and then I'll go to Ms. Freed afterwards. Good morning.
Good morning, Matthew Tuma. I serve as Deputy Director for the Department of Administration, and Director Freed is on the Zoom call as well as EATS CIO or EATS Administrator Tim Galuzzi is on the Zoom link, and I have CIO Alan Cunningham here in person as well to testify. That is the summary for this bill is correct. It's a general fund one-shot loan to EITS for the replacement of the content management system. And as this committee probably remembers from budget presentations, this is a budget implementation bill, and this project was initially approved in the last legislative session, so the 2019 legislative session, and then funding for this project was reverted during the special session in budget reduction. So we're here asking for the same project. It is still an essential infrastructure need for the department and the division. Turn it over to Mr. Cunningham for some high-level comments as well, and then we will be open for questions.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Alan Cunningham, State Chief Information Officer. The needs of our citizens are served by multiple agencies within the state, and the citizens are clamoring to consume those services in a digital format. Our agency partners need modern tools to satisfy those digital citizen needs. Our current Electron content management system has been in use for many years and was actually supposed to be end of life in 2014. Staff have managed to keep it working, but that's come at a cost. Agencies have found that the capabilities of the old system did not meet the needs of our citizens. Some of our agencies' customers were forced to contract outside of enterprise IT services for those capabilities that our system could not provide. Currently, there are over 60 different agency websites that are hosted outside of the state content management system. This raises several issues, including ADA compliance, which the state is responsible for, but has no input for these sites. We feel that the upgrade to the system will really help us assist with not only ADA compliance, but offering the services to our agency partners that they can then offer to their citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Freed, did you have any comments?
Laura Freed, Director of Administration. For the record, I can't say it better than my colleagues have already. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. So with that, committee members, are there any questions? Ms. Tolles.
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate that this will help us keep an ADA compliance. I'm also wondering if it will also help with some cybersecurity.
Mr. Cunningham, go ahead.
Alan Cunningham, State CIO. It will help in a manner for cybersecurity. It will make sure that all the sites are up to the latest versions of .NET, which we had issues with before with the original Electron system. So that will make a difference. The main thing we're looking at is functionality, and obviously safe functionality for our citizens and our agency partners. The the functionality is way superior in the new product that we're looking at. As I said, the original Electron system was supposed to be end of life in 2014, but it was designed and put in late 1998ish, I think, if memory serves me right from the information I've had. So it will make a difference to our cybersecurity posture moving forward, yes.
Okay, thank you, Assemblywoman Tolles. Any other questions from any other committee members at this time? Not seeing any. Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. So with that, I believe we can go ahead and proceed with the hearing on SB 426. Is there anyone else here in the room in support of Senate Bill 426? Not seeing anyone else. Broadcast Services, support for 426, please.
If you would like to testify in support on SB 426, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in support.
Thank you very much. Any opposition here in the room? Seeing none. Opposition on the phone line, please.
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 426, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in opposition at this time.
Anyone in neutral here in the room? Seeing no one in neutral, Broadcast Services, is there anyone in neutral on the phone line?
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 426, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. So with that, we can go ahead and close the hearing on Senate Bill 426, and we can open up the hearing on Senate Bill 427.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 427 makes a general fund appropriation totaling $766,561 to the Division of Child and Family Services of the Department of Health and Human Services for deferred maintenance projects at Summit View Youth Center, Caliente Youth Center, Nevada Youth Training Center, and the Southern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services Campus.
Thank you very much. We have someone here to present. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Good morning, Mandy Davis, Deputy Administrator for the Division of Child and Family Services. As Ms. Kaufman stated, this bill would provide a one-time appropriation of $766,561 for deferred maintenance projects and replacement equipment at our agency-owned buildings. For the committee's information, Summit View Youth Center in Section 1 of the bill is located in Las Vegas. Caliente Youth Center from Section 2 is located down in Lincoln County in Caliente. Nevada Youth Training Center in Section 3 of the bill is in Elko. And then our Southern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services campus is down on Charleston Boulevard in Las Vegas. I have details on all of the projects that these would support if the committee would like. Otherwise, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. I really don't need to know what tiles and what windows and all the little things that you need to do, but knowing who these facilities serve, I'm sure there's definitely some maintenance that needs to be involved in keeping them up to par. So with that, any questions from any other committee members at this time? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Davis. Nice to see you again. We will go ahead and open up the hearing for Senate Bill 427. So with that, do we have anyone here in the room in support of 427? Seeing none, Broadcast Services, the phone line, anyone in support?
If you would like to testify in support on SB 427, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in support at this time.
Thank you very much. So with that, anyone in opposition in the room? Seeing none, anyone in opposition on the phone line?
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 427, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. So with that, anyone in neutral in the room? Seeing none, broadcast services, anyone in neutral on the phone line?
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 427, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. With that, are there any closing comments? I don't believe so. I think we're good. So with that, we can go ahead and close the hearing on Senate Bill 427. And we can open up the hearing on Senate Bill 428. Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 428 makes highway fund appropriations totaling $12,904,978 for the replacement of fleet vehicles and associated special equipment, the replacement of fleet motorcycles and associated special equipment, oral fluid mobile analyzers and cartridges to be used for drug-related offenses, the replacement of mobile data computer tablets, equipment items for the Division of Multidisciplinary Investigations and Construction Team, as well as the replacement of printers and associated mobile adapters, and the replacement of various computer hardware and software.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, whoever is presenting, please introduce yourself. I have multiple people on the screen, so just proceed.
Good morning, Chair Carlton and members of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means. I am Martin Malesko with the Nevada Department of Public Safety. I'm a captain with the Nevada Highway Patrol and assigned to our headquarters office. I'm joined here with Colonel Ann Carpenter, and we are pleased to be here under the leadership of Director of Public Safety, George Tagliati. We also have two other members online with us today that are available to assist. They are Administrative Services Officer Christy Defer and Didi Gortori. They are two of the many critical pieces in our team that keep our engine running at peak performance and are driven by dedication, passion, and pride. It is our pleasure to be here this morning to introduce Senate Bill 428 to the committee. Thank you. Chair, with your permission, I would like to introduce each section individually, and then if there are any questions, we can address them at the end. Chair, is that okay?
That's fine. Just walk us through it and we'll go from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Section 1 funds the replacement of fleet vehicles and associated special equipment. Section 2 funds the replacement of fleet motorcycles and associated special equipment. Section 3 funds the procurement of oral fluid mobile analyzers and cartridges to be used for drug-related offenses. Section 4 funds the replacement of mobile data computer tablets. Section 5 funds the equipment for the division's multidisciplinary investigation and reconstruction team, also known as the Fatal Team. Section 6 funds the replacement of printers and associated mobile adapters. Section 7 funds the replacement of computer hardware and software. And to the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means, we thank you for your time, energy, and support. Chair, we would like to now open it up for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, committee members, are there any questions? I knew I was going to go to Mr. Roberts, so Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the question. Just a question on your replacement schedule. So what's the mileage that you replace these, your cars typically, and then what's the mileage on your motorcycles? And then I'll follow up once you answer those.
Thank you, Assemblyman Roberts. I'm going to turn that question over to Dini Gortari, our ASO.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Ways and Means Committee. In response to the question, the mileage that we turn into vehicles are consistent with SAM. So for our utility vehicles, as well as our pickup trucks, the mileage turned in is 125,000 miles. For our sedans, it's 105, and our motorcycles are 60,000.
Thank you very much for that. And just curious as how many vehicles were you talking about for this replacement?
Assemblyman, thank you for the question. We are replacing 159 patrol vehicles, which consist of 140 police interceptor utilities and 19 pickup trucks. And for the section 2.1, the enhancement request funds the replacement of 7 police motorcycles in northern and southern Nevada.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Combined,
it.
7 combined.
Thank you for the answers. I appreciate it. And thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. So
You're
just a curiosity, about how long does it take us to put that type of mileage on a vehicle? I imagine a patrol car in the rurals is probably a little bit different than one down south. So this just seems like a lot of vehicles all at one time. So I'm just wondering, what are the time frames usually like on this?
Yeah. For the record, Danny Gortari, Administrative Service Officer over the fleet. Madam Chair, in the rurals, you're going to see that our average mileage for a lot of the vehicles is up as much as 2,200 miles a month. And in the urbans, it might be just about overall for the whole fleet, it's about 2,000 miles per month per unit.
Okay, thank you.
And then, of course, we rotate them around. You know, I'd like to add to that. We rotate them around, you know, from the rurals. We might rotate them into urban to try to do an even type depreciation in terms of miles.
You were reading my mind because I remember the conversation with folks when I knew P&P a little bit better years ago about switching out cars to make sure the mileage ended up in the right place for the right car at the right time so that you could get the best use out of all the cars. Okay, so.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, that's true.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to kind of piggyback on the 2 prior line of questioning, I would assume that these are staggered. Not all your fleet goes out at the same time, and so this is just a portion of all the vehicles that you have.
Jenny Gurtari, through the chair to the Assemblywoman, that is correct. You know, roughly, if you take this metric and the rotations that I was talking about earlier, we're really trying to, you know, we work against a scale of 5 years, you know, because at the end of the day, if we rotate them around and can get them out to auction, that's really good for everybody because your residual values, the auction will be good, you know, and so, you know, we're talking probably about 20% of the fleet, you know, 20% of the fleet every year. So this request is consistent with that methodology of utilization to try to keep our requests consistent and evened out.
Just follow up on that, if I might, Madam Chair. So when you replace these vehicles, it's 2 things. It's about the safety for the officers driving these vehicles, so they have a vehicle they can depend on, and that you still have maybe some small residual value. So there's a 2-tiered reason for replacing these vehicles.
Well, yes. I mean, obviously, if you Kenny Gurtari, for the record, there is 2 parts to it. You know, the resale market's been very strong. I think I had a little note here that, you know, used car prices have surged 21% since last April, including a 10% increase just since April of 21, with a lot of people returning to driving to work and the cost of the new vehicles being so high. So we're seeing some very good residuals for our vehicles. And in anticipation of that question, let's see if, like for instance, our sedans, I just took an example from the excess property unit. And, you know, our sedans are ranging from, and of course, this depends on the number of bidders at the auction. And it also depends on, you know, the condition of the vehicle. But I was looking at our sedans getting residuals between $4,700 and $7,000 on the way out, and their mileage threshold is 105. Our pickups have been getting between 7,900 and as much as almost 12,000. And these are mileaged out units. And then, of course, our utilities, 6,000 to 7,000, and our motorcycles along the same line, 6,000 to 7,000. So this was just a sampling I took of our last couple of auctions. So I'm sorry for the long-winded answer.
And just real quick, sorry, Madam Chair. I've heard that you can't get new vehicles. The parts are difficult. Are you going to have any difficulty getting these vehicles?
Well, so far, our main manufacturer, which is Ford, has been outstanding. I mean, we started off, there were some issues because they changed the model year in 2020 to a completely new like the internal dimensions and that sort of thing. So we started off a little slow in 2020, but our last couple of orders came in on time. But what you're hearing, I'm not going to say that's not going to be an issue going forward. I hope not. And it relates to the fact that there's a global chip shortage. And so these cars are very computerized these days. So with that in mind, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I can't say it's absolutely not going to be an issue, but so far we've been pretty fortunate.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the questions.
Thank you very much. And I think one of the reasons why the cars go for such a high rate, they know where they came from and they know the maintenance that's involved and how well we take care of those cars, because officer safety is a priority, and we want to make sure if they're out there in the middle of nowhere at night on a scene that car's there for them, because that's their lifeline back. So we just want to, people know that I hear talk, they go to the auctions just to get these cars and these trucks. So with that, I don't think there are any other questions at this time. So this is the hearing for Senate Bill 428. So is there anyone here in the room in support of Senate Bill 428? Seeing none, anyone on the phone line in support of Senate Bill 428?
If you would like to testify in support on SB 428, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Anyone here in the room in opposition? Seeing none, any opposition on the phone line, please?
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 428, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in opposition.
Anyone in neutral in the room? Seeing no one, anyone in neutral on the phone line, please?
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 428, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one on the line to testify in neutral on SB 428.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. So any closing comments? Ms. Carpenter, it's nice. Is that you there?
It is. It's Ann Carpenter for the record. I just want to thank you, Madam Chair, for your continued support for the Department of Public Safety and the Highway Patrol Division. We appreciate it.
And thank you, Ms. Carpenter, and congratulations on being the first woman to sit in that seat. I am very proud that I've known you for over 20 years. Good job. We appreciate it. So with that, committee members, I think we can go ahead and close Senate Bill 428 and move on to Senate Bill 429.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 429 makes a supplemental general fund appropriation of $350,254 to the Office of the Attorney General for the Office of Extradition Coordinator budget to cover a projected shortfall related to extradition costs.
Thank you very much. So please proceed. Good morning.
Thank you, Madam. Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Jessica Hoban. I'm the Chief Financial Officer with the Office of the Attorney General. Thank you, Chair and committee members, for hearing this bill today. The reason why we are asking for this supplemental appropriation for the extradition budget is related to a shortfall that is primarily a result of two particular circumstances. The first one is the cost for transports of persons who are being extradited back to Nevada to face trial for outstanding warrants. The COVID-19 pandemic and the associated travel restrictions that were a result of mitigating the COVID-19 spread made it impossible for us to do ground transports, which is what we had been doing in the past. So once those restrictions were put into place, we were left with only being able to conduct these transports via airline or airfare. Although some states are are reducing some of their travel restrictions at the moment. One of the items that's required to transport someone who is in custody to come back to Nevada for trial is that they must make periodic stops at other prisons or jail institutions. In order to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in those jail or prison facilities, those have also been and continue to be shut down to people who are not part of their regular population. So we are still having to conduct these transports via air rather than the ground. Additionally, or a secondary circumstance also related to the COVID-19 travel restrictions was fiscal year 2020 also had a shortfall due to the costs associated with airfare as compared to ground transport. Senate Assembly Bill 543, Section 33 of the 2019 legislative session authorized the transfer of general funds from fiscal year 2021 into fiscal year 2020 to cover shortfalls. So in fiscal year 2020, we did transfer $160,266 from the current state fiscal year 21 appropriation. This also initiated a shortfall at the beginning of 2021. So the amount that we're requesting today covers the shortfall, which was transferred to the previous fiscal year. And it also covers additional costs for the air transport in fiscal year 21. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent explanation of the challenges that were faced in order to be able to keep the criminal justice system running. So we appreciate the explanation. Committee members, are there any questions at this time? Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair, not ma'am. Are we doing these transports in-house, or are you using a contract company? Just curious.
So for the record, Jessica Hoban, Chief Financial Officer with the Office of the Attorney General. We did have a contractor conducting these transports through January, I believe is when their contract ended. We are trying to get another RFP out and get a replacement contractor, but in the meantime, we still are doing the air transports, but we are using for Attorney General's office staff, we are using our Attorney General staff. The extraditions that we pay for are not limited to the Attorney General's office request for extraditions. We actually cover the costs statewide. So there are other jurisdictions, primarily counties, and then also some law enforcement agencies that do conduct their own transports, which we are by statute required to reimburse them for those costs. So I can speak to what we're doing at the Attorney General's office. Also, the previous vendor that we had under contract, most all of the other local jurisdictions were using that same contract. Once that contract had ended is when we don't have the same service available for everyone. So the local jurisdictions are following their own procurement process until we can get something available statewide again.
Okay. Thank you for the very detailed answer, and thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Mr. Roberts. So with that, committee members, are there any other questions at this time of the Attorney General's office? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open it up for testimony then on Senate Bill 429. So with that, is there anyone here in the room in support of 429? Seeing none. Broadcast Services, is there anyone on the phone line in support of 429?
If you would like to testify in support of SB 429, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one on the line to testify in support on AB 420 or SB 429.
Thank you very much. Anyone in the room in opposition? Seeing none, could we go to the phone line for opposition, please?
If you would like to testify in opposition on SB 429, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. So with that, is there anyone in the room in neutral? Seeing none, could we go to the phone lines for neutral, please?
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 429, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one on the line to testify in neutral on SB 429.
Thank you very much. Any closing comments? Seeing none.
Thank you, Madam Chair and the committee. Oh, sorry, and for your time in hearing our bill today.
Thank you very much. It's a good presentation, a lot of good information. We appreciate that. We'll go ahead and close the hearing and move on to Senate Bill 431 is the next in our queue. And I believe, we'll see how long this one takes, but we may only be able to do one or two more to give members time to get things done between now and scheduled floor. So we'll go for 431 next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 431 makes a general fund appropriation totaling $231,109 to the Nevada Supreme Court for the Judicial Programs and Services Division budget for the replacement of computer hardware and software, for the Court of Appeals budget for the replacement of computer hardware and software, for the Supreme Court budget for the replacement of computer hardware and software, and for the Supreme Court Law Library budget for the replacement of computer hardware and software. In addition, Senate Bill 431 authorizes the expenditure of $93,610 not appropriated from the State General Fund or the State Highway Fund over the 2021-23 biennium for the judicial branch for the replacement of computer hardware and software for the Administrative Office of Courts, for the replacement of computer hardware and software for the Uniform System of Judicial Records, for the replacement of computer hardware and software for the Judicial Education budget, and for replacement of computer hardware and software for Judicial Education budget.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaufman. I think you almost did the bill presentation for Mr. McCormick. So with that, Mr. McCormick, please proceed.
Thank you. And for the record, John McCormick, Assistant Court Administrator at the Supreme Court AOC. With me this morning is Rick Steffney, our Chief Information Officer. As staff so eloquently indicated, this is to replace computer hardware and software at the court, and replacing this will allow us to replace our existing equipment and transition that existing equipment into being a disaster recovery backup. So it will kind of get double utility out of this one.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. McCormick. So I'm going to ask the obvious question. So the $93,610, that's not general fund or highway fund. I'm assuming those are assessment fees?
Thank you for the question, Chair Carlton. John McCormick for the record. Yep, those are administrative assessment-based accounts.
All right. Thank you very much. Just want to make sure we have a complete record. Committee members, are there any questions of Mr. McCormick at the time? Not seeing any questions. Thank you very much, Mr. McCormick. We appreciate it. So with that, I believe we can go ahead and open it up for testimony for Senate Bill 431. So is there anyone in the room in support of Senate Bill 431? Not seeing anyone. Broadcast Services, anyone in support of Senate Bill 431?
If you'd like to testify in support on SB 431, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one to testify in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the room in opposition? Seeing none, is there any opposition on the phone line, please?
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 431, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one on the line to testify in opposition.
Thank you very much. And so with that, anyone in neutral in the room? Not seeing anyone. Any neutral on the phone line, please?
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 431, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one on the line to testify in neutral on SB 431.
Thank you very much. I don't believe there's any other comments that need to be made on 431. I believe we can go ahead and close the hearing on Senate Bill 431. Thank you very much. Hold on for just a second. Alrighty. So with that, committee members, I believe we can go ahead and process Senate Bill 432, and this will be the last bill that we will process before we go to public comment, so folks have time between here and the floor, just so the public is aware. If we will be recessing today. If we can come back in later, we will, but at this time of session, there's really no guarantee. So thank everyone for their patience and flexibility. So with that, Senate Bill 432.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 432 makes a general fund appropriation of $530,024 to the Office of the Military and authorizes $741,924 not appropriated by the State General Fund or the Highway Fund for maintenance projects at certain Nevada Army National Guard facilities. The bill also appropriates general fund appropriations of $39,750 to the Office of the Military for the replacement of computer hardware and software. Finally, Senate Bill 432 makes a general fund appropriation of $43,180 to the Office of Military and authorizes $84,872 not appropriated from the State General Fund or the State Highway Fund for the replacement equipment and shop tools.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have someone on Zoom from the Office of the Military? I don't think we do. Ms. Brown, are you going to be pinch hitting?
Looks, Susan Brown for the record. It looks like it. Let me get into this really quick.
Okay. We know in real baseball there is no designated hitter, but in this particular case, we'll make an exception. Mr. Leiser got that one. You know, there's real baseball, and then there's the other league. What can I say? I'll give Miss. I'm just vamping to give Miss Brown some time here. So none of this will end up in the record, I'm sure. It unfortunately will be on the video forever. I just thought about that. Ms. Brown, if you'd like, we can just pull this one back and get to it this evening, or if not, first thing tomorrow morning, if that would work. I'd much rather have I don't want to put you in an awkward position, and I know we've moved through these fairly quickly, and things are a little disjointed today. So if that's fine, I think that's probably what we'll do, is we'll just pull this one back. Committee members, we will not open up the hearing on 432. We'll bring it back to the committee, and we'll make sure that folks are aware of what's going on and go from there. This does happen sometimes. So typically we would not do public comment, but because we're going into recess and we don't know what the rest of the day looks like, and there are folks here for public comment, I'll be happy to go ahead and open it up for public comment at this time, because if we do come back in, it could be 10 o'clock tonight, so I don't want folks having to wait around. So with that, our bill business for this morning is complete. I'll open it up for public comment. If you'd like to go ahead and come forward. Please introduce yourself for the record. Push the button for the microphone. You're
There we
on.
go. Thank you so much. My name is Heather Pope, spelled Heatherpope. So good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Again, my name is Heather Pope, and I'm here representing Compassion and Choices Action Network and the many terminally ill Nevada residents who don't have the capacity to be here today. We request that the Assembly Bill 351 be afforded a hearing, as it was pulled from the agenda just hours before it was to be heard. The lack of movement on this bill has consequences. Our terminally ill family, friends, and neighbors are limited to suffering through their final days or abandoning everything and leaving Nevada specifically because they cannot access the care they need here. We know that based on recent polling that 73% of Nevadans, regardless of their party, religion, gender, or age, want qualified patients to have this option. Hannah here, you'll see to the right of Gov Sisolak. Hannah is a 46-year-old mother and grandmother. She's living with multiple myeloma. Hannah is deeply driven by her faith and wants to experience her inevitable death peacefully, surrounded by her loved ones and their prayers. Hannah is vibrant and desperately wishes to live. The fact is that her terminal illness is killing her, and the question that remains is whether or not her and her family must endure the trauma of a bad death. It's challenging to find the words to accurately convey the urgency of this legislation. Please release or vote on AB 351. Thank you so much for your attention and for your service to the state of Nevada.
And thank you for being here. We appreciate that. Is there any other public comment to come before the committee at this time? Seeing none, I would thank everyone. Good job this morning. We are in recess till call of the chair. Thank you all.